Good morning, Morai Rabotai. We are continuing on Masechet Avodah Zarah. We are on Daf Hey, Amud Bet, on top of the Amud, 3 lines down. Today's Amud is being learned L'Schut Yosha ben Dina Diana and Yael bat Rivka Menashe ben Asi. Today's Amud is also being learned Le'ilui Nishmat Sipora bat Yitzchak. We started on the bottom of Hey Amud Aleph. Tanu Rabbanan Mi iten v'haya levavam ze lahem. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu, after giving the Torah, before they went for Chet HaEgel, says, I wish their heart that is so much Yaresh Shamayim should stay like this for all the years, for all the generations. Le'ira'oti kol hayamim. And says, the Gemara, Moshe Rabbeinu was telling them, Amar lahen Moshe Yisrael, Kfuyeh Tova, b'nei Kfuyeh Tova. You are ingrates, the sons of ingrate. What does that mean? You're not appreciative of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's good, because B'sha'ah she'amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Moshe Rabbeinu is saying this 40 years later. It says, B'sha'ah she'amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when 40 years ago, Hashem said, Mi yiten v'haya levavam ze lahem, who gives that their heart should be, I wish their heart should be like this, Kol hayamim, all the days, you should have said, Hashem, tenata, you should give, you should help us. Because you had to acknowledge that the level of Yirat Shamayim and amazing heights of Kedushat that you had accomplished was not just you doing it, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought you up to that experience by the means of, the experience of Matan Torah, but of course, even things beforehand, that they went through, witnessing all of the miracles by Yetziat Mitzrayim of the 10 plagues and the Mavar Hayam, opening of the sea. All of those amazing experiences created a platform to bring them up to the level that they were. And they didn't want to admit that what they had was not theirs. Because if they were not feeling ownership over it, they would say, Hashem, you helped us thus far. Please, you should cause that we should be like this all the days. So therefore, that shows that they were not appreciative. They were not admitting that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had done good to them beforehand. So says the Gemara, Kefuyeh Tova dichtiv. And you see this when they were dealing with man, which is the most amazing food ever, spiritual element of sustenance, and they say, they called it in a derogatory way, whether it means that it's light, it doesn't have any waste, or milashon kilkul, that it's going to do something to us because we're eating and we're not going to the bathroom. However you understand that, they complained about the most amazing thing that will come for them every day, daily, in a miraculous way. B'nei Kefuyeh Tova, the sons of an ingrate, means because of Adam HaRishon. Adam HaRishon also, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world for him. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the Chava for him. And he says, Ha'isha asher natata imadi, hi natna li bin ha'etz va'ochal. That when he was caught, so to speak, red-handed, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Hamin ha'etz asher amarti, you ate from the tree that I told you not to eat. Hashem immediately says, not me. Is whose fault it is? It's your fault. You gave me a woman that convinced me to do this. Ha'isha doesn't just say Ha'isha natnadi. It says Ha'isha asher natata ibadi. You gave me a wife, and therefore indirectly you're the cause of this, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So says Moshe Rabbeinu, that's being ingrate, that's being not appreciative. Says the Gemara, Af Moshe Rabbeinu lo ramzara eli Yisrael la'achar 40 shana. But not only the Jews did not understand this fully themselves, they're not ready to hear it, but Moshe Rabbeinu himself did not know this, to make a point of this, until after 40 years. 40 years later, Moshe Rabbeinu says, by the way, come to think of it, you are such ingrates. But he waited until 40 years later to know this, that this was a problem. It's based on Rashi, others disagree, which is this is even not derogatory, but this shows that even Moshe Rabbeinu, with his great heights, did not pay attention to this, did not notice it until 40 years after it happened. And the pasuk says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm taking you throughout the wilderness on the Midbar, 40 years. And then it says, afterwards, Velo natan Hashem lachem lev lada'at. Hashem did not give you lev lada'at. The full pasuk is Velo natan Hashem lachem lev lada'at ve'inayim lir'ot ve'ozdayim nishmoa ad hayom hazeh. Hashem did not give you a heart to understand, eyes to see, and ears to hear ad hayom hazeh, until today. Really? Well, they got the Torah 40 years almost ago. So what do you mean Hashem didn't give you heart and eyes and ears? So says the Gemara, you know what it means is, a person sometimes does not understand things on their proper context and deep message immediately when they're told. Sometimes it takes you years to understand what an elder, someone greater says. And the Gemara says, when it's your Rabbi, something that takes you 40 years to understand what exactly the deep message in what they said was. So says the Gemara, very famous Gemara, it teaches you, Amar Rabba, Shma mina, lo kayi inish adate de Rabbe ad 40 shenin. A person does not understand fully his Rebbe's message until 40 years. 40 years takes you to understand what your Rebbe said, right? So the Tosafot Yom Tov asks, what they're not 40 years necessarily. When we say 40 lebina, when we say we have, the Mishnah gives us different ages, right? Ben Hamesh leMikra, right? Ben Eser leMishnah. We have all these ages that the person accomplishes something, and it says Ben 40 lebina. When you are 40 years old, then you start understanding. So, says the Tosafot Yom Tov on the Mishnah, says, where is the source for 40 lebina? Right? Simply understanding is, until Ben Shloshim lekoach, you become fully strong and developed at age 30, and then 40 is where kind of things slow down physically. The decline starts little by little from 40, right? And as a person's physical declines, the mind and the power of their understanding grows. And therefore, ben 40 lebina, right? You have this in many places. We spoke about this Masechet Chagiga, whether or not you could start learning deeper concepts of Torah at age 40, at age 50. Rabbi Hananel said over there. I was speaking about Maaseh Merkava and Kabbalah in general and so on. So he understands that this is coming from the fact that the Jews, that 40 years it took, so therefore 40. But it says, wait a second, but they were not 40 years old, they're much older. Many people were, Moshe Rabbeinu was what? 120 years old. People came out of Mitzrayim and they were whatever age they were. It's not 40 years, and he says this is an amazing proof for the fact that ger shenolad ki katan shenolad dami. When you have a ger that becomes a ger tzedek, it's as if he was born that moment, and therefore, if you understand that all of them became gerim because they're not Jews, they all became gerim by Matan Torah, and by Yetziat Mitzrayim they came out and they accepted to become Jewish, to accept the Torah, and that's kikatan shenolad dami, and therefore now it's 40 years afterwards. They're like 40-year-olds basically. So the 40 shana really comes from there. Now, there's a very interesting Khatam Sofer that speaks about this as well, he had a difficult time understanding what is exactly the source. What is exactly the source that ger shenitkayer ki katan shenolad dami? The Gemara says it. Gemara says ger shenitkayer ki katan shenolad dami, and the Gemara says it in regards to marrying a person that is blood related, that otherwise you would not be able to marry, and now you could. Midrabanan we say, well, you should not be less than the Jews, so therefore midrabanan they shouldn't do it. But ger shenitkayer ki katan shenolad dami. Khatam Sofer says maybe in halachot of Yerusha you see gezel ager, if somebody steals from a ger and now he wants to return it. If it was a Jew, you always have Yorshim. There's a parasha of Yerusha. It goes down, and if they don't have children, it goes up. The brothers, the father, the cousins, and so on. But by a ger, says there's no family. So says the Khatam Sofer, why do you give it to the other Shvatim, Shevet Levi, whatever it is? Why do you do it that way? Because they don't have a mishpacha. The moment that they become gerim ger shenitkayer ke katan shenolad dami, right? Those family relations are gone. But that's what he says. Now, Rabbi Simcha Midovinsk, the Holy Or Sameach, in Meshach Chochmah, he writes, he says, to me it's Pashut. He brings the Khatam Sofer, he says, for his whole life, he was challenged with this, what the source is. He says, to me it's very Pashut what the source is. The source is really what we had in the previous Amud, that after Matan Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to the Jews, Shuvu lachem la'aholechem. Go back to your wives. So it says the Meir Simcha, Meshech Chochmah, says, wait a second. Many people, they were married with their family members. Prime example, Moshe Rabbeinu's parents. Amram married his aunt. Can't marry your aunt. But then the Torah says, Shuvu lachem la'aholechem. Everyone go back to your wives. How can you go back to somebody that's related to you? Right? You should have divorced. All these people should have gotten divorced. What do you mean? So says Rabbi Simcha, is because ger shenitkayer ki katan shenolad dami. It was mutar for them because of that. But be as it may, that's something that connects really both that pasuk of Shuvu lachem le'olechem, also together with this of 40 shana en adam omed al da'at rabo elad achar 40 shana. A person doesn't fully appreciate and understand what his Rabbi says. In this case, Moshe Rabbeinu versus HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what Hashem had in mind was unspoken, but it took 40 years even for Moshe Rabbeinu to know this. Says the Gemara, Uchtiv, Velo natan Hashem lachem lev lada'at, Amar Rabba, Shmamina lokai inish ada'ateh terabeh ad 40 shenin. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Banaa, מה דכתיב? אשריכם זורעי על כל מים, משלחי רגל השור והחמור. Fortunate are you, זורעי על כל מים, the ones who plant on all water. What does that mean exactly? So says the Gemara, אשריהם ישראל, בזמן שעוסקים בתורה ובגמילות חסדים. Fortunate are Israel that when they are busy with gimilut chesed and with Torah, yitzram masur beyadam. Their yetzer hara is in their hand, under their control. Ve'en hem mesurim beyad yisram. And they are not given over. They're not under the control of yetzer hara. On the contrary, they control their inclinations. Shenemar ashrechem zorei al kol mayim. Because it says, fortunate are you, zorei al kol mayim. Now, what is zeri'ah? What is the reference of the pasuk? Ve'en zeri'ah el tzedakah. Zeri'ah is a reference to tzedakah. Why? Because the pasuk says, zir'u lachem listaka ve'kisru lefi chassid. Plant tzedakah, plant acts of charity and kindness, and then you will harvest, you'll kisru lefi chesed, you'll see the harvest of that coming back as chesed. So, but you see from here, the verbiage for tzedakah is zri'ah, of plantation. Zir'u, it says, you plant tzedakah. Ziru lachem li tzedakah. So when it says, kol, everyone that's zorea, al kol mayim, zorea, zri'ah is a reference to tzedakah. So that's someone that does tzedakah. And mayim is Torah. En mayim ela Torah. Ve'en mayim ela Torah shenemar, hoi kol sameh lechu lemayim. They see, so anyone that's thirsty go to mayim, and the context of the pasuk over there is referencing Torah. So therefore, when the pasuk says, Ashrechem kol zor'eh al kol mayim, the fortunate are you, zor'eh al kol mayim is zri'ah, and mayim it's tzedakah and Torah. That's what it is. A person that engages in tzedakah and engages in learning Torah, that person, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives the Yitzhara to their hand. Meshalchei regel hashor v'chamor. The end of the pasuk that says, talks about shor and chamor. Tana de Eliyahu, Eliyahu Navi taught, leolam yasim adam atzmo. That's like a condition. You know what type of learning Torah is the segula for your Yetzirah to be in your hand? This type of Torah, which is leolam yasim adam atzmo al divrei Torah keshor leol v'chamor lemasot. That a person should put himself like a shor leol, like a cow, oxen, for yoke. The oxen is very strong, he plows through things, and that's like the beginning of learning Torah. A person has to be patient, has to be working really hard, like an oxen that holds the yoke without being tired of it. And you know, not every animal you could put yoke on. The cow, you could put yoke on, and it will strong with all of its power and might. It will carry the yoke and whatever is attached to it. So that's the strength that the person needs in learning Torah, but it's not enough. It also has to be kachamor lemasoi. It has to be like a donkey for the burden on top of it, which indicates, of course, that even afterwards you are carrying the Torah with you, teaching it to other people, and so on. But in a deeper sense, chamor never gets tired. You know, when the shore works a half a day and they have to rest, you have to take the yoke off. You have to, let them just be. But the donkey, even when they rest, you don't take anything off of them. They just sit with all the load on top of them. They rest up and then get up and go. And that's the second element of it, that you work hard, but the working becomes part and parcel of you. You don't drop the load of Torah. Even when you are going to vacation in the summer, you're carrying the Torah with you. You're carrying everything with you like the chamor lemasoi. Now, 2 dots, we go back to the actual subject of our Mishnah. We have had beautiful dapim of Agata, and now we go back actually to our Mishnah. So the Mishnah said, 3 days before the Hagim of Ovdei Kochavim, you can't do business with them. You can't sell. Perhaps you can't buy. It's Machloket Rashi and Tosafot, as we mentioned before. You can lend them. You can borrow from them, and so on. So says the Gemara, Gimel Yamim Asur Laset Latet Imahem. This that you can't do business with them 3 days before the Chag. The Gemara says, Umi Ba'inan Kulehai. I mean, the chashash, the worry, the concern is that they are preparing for their Avodah Zarah, and if you give them something good, then they're going to be thankful for their Avodah Zarah, and that's a problem. That was the concern. So Gemara says, what, you 3 days of preparation? Well, you did preparation 1 day. And the Gemara brings a Mishnah. The 4 days during the year that if you sell an animal to your friend, this is Jews doing business with Jews, you have to tell them if you have shechted the child or the mother of this animal. In other words, there is a mitzvah in the Torah, Oto vet beno lo tishchatu b'yom echad. You cannot shecht a mother and a child in the same day. You can't. Even if two different people do it, still can't. So therefore, imagine if you have shechted the mother of this animal and now you're selling the child, or vice versa. You've shechted the child, you're selling the mother. Do you have to tell to the buyer, oh, you cannot shecht it today? Or do you not have to tell? Well, normally speaking, you don't. Because when they buy it, who says they're going to shecht it today? But there are 4 days during the calendar that whoever buys animal on those days, it's a chazakah, they're doing shechita right there and then, that day. What are those 4 days? Those are the days that people usually have large seudas and the preparations of food and so on. So says the Gemara, 4 days you have to tell the guy if you have shechted the child or the mother of this animal that you're selling. You have to tell your friend, well, you cannot shecht this animal today because I just shechted its mother or its child, so you cannot do. Ve'eluhen Erev Yom Tov Ha'acharon Shel Chag, the last day of Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, Erev Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach, Erev of the first day of Pesach, Erev Atzeret, Erev Shavuot, ve'erev Rosh Hashanah. Right? Those 4 days. Och divrei Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, if you follow Rabbi Yossi HaGalili, af Erev Yom HaKippurim. Right? Now you have Erev Yom Kippur also because the mitzvah to be marbe bes'uda, right? כל האוכל בתשיעי, מעלה עליו הכתוב כאילו התענה בתשיעי ובעשירי. So therefore, Yom HaKippurim also, in Galil. So says the Gemara, you see over here, 1 day is enough. People are making a Su'udah for Erev Yom Kippur. They buy the animal, Erev Yom Kippur. You want to shecht something, you buy it today. So why do you need 3 days before? So 1 day should be enough. Just tell me 1 day before their Chag, you should not do business with them. Because they are in the preparation of the Chag, and therefore they can't, they can't be given happiness, so to speak. The idol worship, if you make them happy, they're going to go right away. They're mindful of the Avodah Zarah, and it's going to cause them Avodah Zarah. That's why 3 days, says the Gemara.
The problem is that because they're going to shech this animal, or because they're going to think they're Avodah Kohanim?
So it's both of them. The preparation, again, there are 2 things that are there. And the Tosafot says, the understanding of Tosafot, we mentioned this before, is that what you can't sell to them is just animals, because we are more concerned about them using this animal for Avodat Kochavim. So according to him, yes, that's exactly what he's talking about. But according to other Rishonim, including Rashi, the business itself is a problem because they may become excited and happy that now they got this amazing deal, and they're going to go and thank Avodat Kochavim. But be that as it may, we see from this Mishnah that 1 day should be enough. The Gemara says no, it's different, very different. Because it really depends what's being done. If you are doing for Achila, if you want to eat something, yeah, you don't have to check the animal, you want to just cut it up and eat it. But if you're bringing Korban, Korban, you have to check it to make sure it doesn't have any blemishes, it's healthy, it's beautiful, it's kavod of the service. It's the kavod of the avodah that you're doing. So therefore, people spend days before to make sure that they get the proper animal, and it's healthy, and it's nice, and it looks good, and it doesn't have any blemishes outside, and so on and so forth. Says the Gemara, and this is what the Gemara says, Ima macharti lishchot, bita macharti lishchot, that you have to, you would have to tell people that you have shechted the mother, you've shechted the child. Ve'eluhen, Erev Yom Tov Achron Shel Chag, we mentioned all these Yamim Tovim, the beginning of Pesach, Erev Shavuot and Erev Rosh Hashanah, and perhaps Erev Yom Kippur according to Rabbi Yossi HaGalili. And says the Gemara, There is for eating. Eating, you don't care how the animal looks. You just want it to be healthy, not to be terefa. You shecht it and you cut it to pieces and you eat it. But over here is for avodah. When you want to do korban, you need 3 days for preparation. But the Gemara says, wait a second, for bringing korban, 3 days is enough. Well, we used to prepare for korban pesach 30 days before. It says, you start preparing for korban pesach 30 days beforehand. So what do you mean 3 days? It's 30 days, 10 times more. Mara says, no. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel Omer, Shtei Shabbatot. Rabbi Shimon says 2 weeks is enough. Not 1 month, but 2 weeks. But certainly more than 3 days. So the Gemara answers, the Gemara says, Anan de shechichi mumin de pasli. We have a lot of details in what's considered blemish. The goyim, they don't have a lot of blemishes that are posel, that invalidate the animal for korban. They only have to make sure that it has rashe evarim, that it doesn't miss any limbs. If it has all of its limbs, that's considered already good. By us, even if you have a little blemish, a little cut in the dukin sheba'ayin, in the eyelid, it's going to be a problem. So therefore, says the Gemara, by Anan, the shechichi mumin de pasli afilu bedukin sheba'ayin, by us that we have so many details of blemishes in the korban, laws of korbanot, things that invalidate potentially the korban, we need 30 days. But by goyim, inhu, the mechusar ever itlehu, they only hold of missing limbs. If it's not missing any limbs, you're good to go. So for that, 3 days is good enough. You go to the marketplace, 3 days, you start 3 days before for looking for animal. So within 3 days, it's where people are mindful of buying an animal for their korbanot, the goyim, and therefore that would be sufficient. But Tlata Yom Isagi. The Amar Avodah Zarah, minayin lemechusar ever da asur livnei Noach. How do we know that a mechusar ever, an animal that is missing a limb, is considered a blemish and it's pasul for korban of a ben Noach, of a Gentile, a ben Noach? Says the Gemara, you actually learn this from Noach himself. Noach was a ben Noach, right? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him what type of korbanot you should bring. And says the Gemara, Dichtiv, Umikol achai mikol basar shenayim mikol. Mikol achai mikol basar. Why does it say mikol achai mikol basar? It's repetitive. It's not needed to say both of them. Just say mikol achai or say mikol basar. Which is also, by the way, interesting because this is talking about the non-kosher animals. Because the kosher animals, he brought 7 pairs. Over here, he just brought 2. Shenayim. Shenayim is going on the non-kosher, but we learned the laws of korbanot that Hashem gave him from the yitur hakra, from the extra words here in the pasuk. Says mikol achai, mikol basar. So the Gemara is bothered. Why do you need mikol achai? So says the Gemara, Amra Torah have b'mash chayin rashe evarim shela. Bring an animal that all of the limbs are alive and good. There's no limb missing. Haimi baile, says the Gemara, no, that you need for terefa. How do you know that the ben Noach cannot bring a korban that's terefa? How do you know that the ben Noach cannot bring a korban that is not healthy? It has to be chai. Mikol achai, mikol basar. So we learn that you can't bring terefa from that pasuk. So you can't use it for 2 things. We're already using it for the halakha that the ben Noach cannot bring a terefa. Terefa is any animal that has gotten damaged in a way that's not going to live 12 months after. Right? So how do you know that a terefa for us for sure is a problem, but how do you know for a ben Noach also is a problem? Mikol achai, mikol basar, says the Gemara. So you don't have the pasuk available to darshan an additional drasha that it has to be also not missing any limbs in blemishes. So says the Gemara, the Gemara says, terefa milachayot zera nafka. Terefah we learn it from a different pasuk. It says by Noach also bringing the animals in. It says la'achayot kol zera, for them to multiply and for you to have all the races of all the animals and the species in the world. So the achayot zera means they're going to give birth. A terefah does not give birth. So you see from that pasuk that every animal that you bring to the teva has to be healthy enough to be able to give birth. So says the Gemara, that only works. Leman de amar, hanicha leman de amar, terefah ena yoledet. There is a machloket actually in the Gemara if a terefah could give birth or a terefah cannot give birth. So it says according to the man de amar, the terefah cannot give birth. Then you're correct. But how about according to the man de amar, the terefah does give birth? What do you do with that? Ela leman de amar terefah yoledet ma'ika lememar. What do you say about the Manda'amar that says that terefah could give birth? So you don't have a source in the pasuk by Noach that he should have brought only kosher and the treif animals is not going to be kasher for shechita. Says the Gemara, Amar kera itecha bedomin lecha. The Gemara is going to learn from the comparison that the pasuk gave between Noach himself and the korbanot that he will be bringing. He learns from there that the animals should be healthy animals, and Bezat Hashem will continue that in the days to come. Zaku Baruch.